which needn't always be a murder, but is generally a murder. There are a few exceptions, like the franchise affair, which is the murder of a reputation. But in general, it's a murder because it raises the stakes. It's the ultimate crime, and in fact, the ultimate risk for the perpetrator, in the sense that his or her life might no longer at risk in England, where you don't have capital punishment, but certainly incarceration is a risk. So if from all that there's a cleansing or cathartic effect with the detection complete, has evil been removed from society, there's a morality play aspect. Some critics have said that in fact mysteries have more appeal in times when society is disintegrating. The 1930s being, you know, a classic age, simply because that certainty is lacking in society, and therefore it's a if you're thinking of the mystery as the fairy tale, it's comforting to know that you get through the woods and you know that things work out. If the thriller is then structured around who will prevail rather than who done it, you may even know. Well, I was thinking of Frankie Fifield, actually, in her first book. Am I not right that you know it's more of a why done it, because you do know who the characters are? It isn't that you're surprised by who did it. The more interesting question is the aftermath of the crime. And the why. Then the resolution really comes from not who did it, but who won. Legal thrillers, in fact, revolve more around who won in the courtroom, that jousting thing. And that a thriller deals with really scarifying things like serial killers oftentimes, and it helps you face what Stephen King referred to recently, as it helps you face your alligators. Just that old Aristotelian and tragedy catharsis routine. Anyway, in today's, this is very wordy, I'm sorry, but it takes a little while to set all this. In today's world, if the crime novel, as opposed to the pure detective story, can combine these elements, taking the formula perhaps and expanding it into an inquiry into the psyche or a tool to explore psychological, social issues. Is this a return to the social novels of Dickens, let's say, where crime was an element rather than the main thrust, and what he was really looking at was the Victorian social structure? Is the mystery novel going in that direction? Is it a tool for psychological and social exploration? And if so, will it not become ambiguous?
Well, I think there is ambiguity already in quite a lot of crime writing, not just in mine. I mean, Ruth Rendell, I think, has a lot of ambiguity in hers. You see, I'm not sure I thoroughly agree with all of what you said there. You see, if you take there are a lot of subgenres within the whole, which is great. I mean, I think Walter Mosley described it once as a tree with branches breaking out all over the place. There is a lot of social realism, I think, in all modern crime writing. And when I say modern, I mean, you know, if you like, the stuff that really does go out and reach the masses. I mean, I think people do still write just puzzle fiction, but it tends to be a small minority and doesn't sell. I'm thinking in England, there are certainly still some writers who stick to the sort of the nice, convenient puzzle with the nice, convenient end that does give you this idea that everything is neatly tied up. I don't think now, if you look at the work of Val McDermott, Francis Fifield, John Harvey, me, Michael Dibdin even, I think there is a lot of uncertainty in all of it. Now, if you say that the reason people read it is in times of stress is because, you know, it brings a kind of certainty back into their lives, and particularly moral certainty back into their lives. I hate that as a sort of an explanation for it. I always have done. Because, I mean, it may be true. I'm not going to sort of, you know, be daring enough to say, no, it's not true. But to me, the reason why crime fiction is attractive, I think, is first of all, it's what I said, it is this engagement of minds. So it is a kind of, it is simply a game. That's one element of it. The other element of it, I think, is that the crime, particularly at the moment, real crime, is something that we are all deeply and utterly fascinated by, because as a society we've actually got very little else to be fascinated by. Okay, economically, all right, we go up and down a bit. We've been through quite a severe recession, and you have over here. But, you know, this is economics. Yes, we knuckle down, bite the bullet, all the rest of it, come through it. We don't have a war. There is, you know, there are wars going on, but the Western world at the moment is not engaged in warfare. We don't have Siberian prison camps, you know, sort of archipelagos. In other words, what do we get interested in? And I think socially, people love to look at, you know, the sort of the thing they can't control, the thing that is that they cannot solve, the problem they can't solve. And currently at the moment, the problem that we can't solve in any of the Western democracies is crime. We don't know what to do. You've kind of regressed a bit and gone backwards to capital punishment and very tough punishment because you think that's deterrent will work. Most of the European countries don't think that works. Scandinavia's gone for a much more liberal regime, which does seem to be working, interestingly. But in other words, everybody's desperately trying to find a method to deal with something that is as old as time, i.e. crime, you know, Cain and Abel. I mean, it goes way back, way back, it's always been there. But at the moment, it's getting worse. And personally, I think that has everything to do with recession. When you have people out of work, crime goes up. I mean, it's...
Well, there's less to go around, so there's more incentive to take it.
Exactly. And so in fact, the easiest way to solve crime is to improve everybody's standard of living. But that's much too simple and also costs a lot of money for those of us who pay tax. But so therefore, you see, to me, that's what the whole fascination with the crime genre is all about. If you take the puzzle equation out of it, if you say that there is another reason for it, then I think it's that. I think it's that because we bring social realism into what we write about, to a certain extent we are trying also to give answers to this perennial problem of why does crime happen? When it happens, what do you do about it? Which explains why so many of us love the miscarriage of justice idea. Why, because you have capital punishment in America, so many of your writers are writing about, you know, the death penalty and what happens as a result of it. They are merely, I would have said, reflecting views that already exist in society, worries, concerns, interests.
And I do think that the face the alligator bit has some validity too. I think that people who read really scarifying as opposed to puzzle. I mean, there are people who only read serial killer thrillers, for example. In a way, it's facing one's darkest fear. You know, if I read about it here, perhaps it won't happen to me. Or it's some sort of, I can scare myself enough, you know, it won't be as bad in real life. I'm not sure. I'm not a serial killer thriller reader myself. I love that term because it's a certain resonance, whatever it is. But I tend to avoid them, maybe because I found enough in my own life to be frightened of that I don't need to go looking for it, or maybe my alligators are quiescent. I really don't know. But,
you don't think it's... I mean, funny enough, I was having this conversation last night with Tom and Enid Shantz at the Rue Morgue, and you see, if you look at how the psychological thriller is developed in England, and then look at how it's developed in America, and you see, out here you have Quantico, it's wonderful, you know, psychological profiling, behavioural science. We have, in a rather smaller way, something similar in England. We don't have as many serial killers as you have out here, I don't think, but the psychology of behavioural science and psychological profiling is so fascinating. I mean, it really is fascinating that clearly writers were bound to think, that is so good, that is so interesting, we can write a really good story about it. And so over here, because it's I think, probably much more advanced than it is in Britain, the whole science is more advanced, the writers have, lots and lots of writers have explored it because of their fascination with the science and the psychology.